The levels of violence in Iraq and Syria has reached shocking levels of brutality. The dominant headlines of an Islamic militant group trying to establish a global caliphate is certainly much more sexy for news outlets to latch onto. However, one theory suggests that it is simply the result of a much larger project, the control of natural gas.
This won't be a surprise to many of you, I'm sure. Most people assume that any Western involvement in the Middle East is something to do with oil. David Cameron even admitted so when pushed on Britain's relationship with Saudi Arabia, despite their human rights record. But when it comes to natural gas, we are in the early stages of a chess game to control what will essentially be the world's fuel for the next century.
Syria is basically the last piece of the puzzle for anyone who is anyone that wants some natural gas to flow into Europe. So that includes Russia, who want to maintain their current stranglehold on the market, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, who want to wrestle control back from the Russians. And then you've got Syria and Iraq, who are essentially the gatekeepers for the various countries that want to just sell their gas to somebody. But they require some form of military assistance to quell the various interreligious scuffles and uprisings happening in the meantime. So there is a huge spectrum of geopolitics muddying the waters of any possible deals that could occur.
There are several pipelines that are either under construction, planned or abandoned, whose aim is to supply natural gas to Europe. Each one of these in some combination either involves or bypasses Russia and therefore brings the not-so-sexy threesome of Russia, Syria and Iran into the unfortunately literal firing line of the EU, US and neighbouring Middle East states like Saudi Arabia and Qatar.
So what is the result? Well, it's essentially what is happening now, a race to control the flow of natural gas into Europe through the southern corridor of the Middle East, which pitches Russia and its allies against the West and essentially pitches every Middle East country against each other. But for these fights to function, what do they need? Money. And that is what they've got.
During this chess game for control of these natural gas reserves, some people in Syria and Iraq decided rather rudely to start killing each other more than usual, and mostly funded by all the money flowing into those countries that was intended to directly affect the geopolitical situation and therefore the fight for natural gas.
So it's possible that the rise of ISIS is either the rise of a centuries-old caliphate movement in Islam, or, considering that this is not really a new idea in Islam, that those who are seeking that have suddenly found themselves with enough money to buy a camera and a copy of Final Cut Pro, whilst the leaders of the world play a massive game of Risk for natural gas, with the prize being Europe's money.